The fluorescent lights of Research Station Horizon hummed quietly as Jack Miller stared through the reinforced observation window. Behind the thick, quantum-enhanced glass stood the most dangerous creature known to the galaxy, a shadow stalker. Unlike the blurry videos and grainy photos he'd seen during his briefing, this one seemed different. It wasn't throwing itself against the walls or trying to tear apart everything in sight. Instead, it sat perfectly still, its black scales reflecting the harsh light like polished obsidian. "You must be crazy to take this assignment," said Tom, the head of station security. He stood beside Jack, arms crossed tightly over his chest. "These things have wiped out entire civilizations. The last researcher who tried to study one. Well, let's just say we didn't find enough left to send home to his family." Jack didn't look away from the window. "Every creature has patterns, behaviors we can understand, even the deadliest ones." "Not this one," Tom insisted, tapping the glass despite strict protocols against doing so. 3 separate alien species went extinct trying to study them. The only reason we managed to capture this one was pure luck, a malfunction in its ship's engines. The creature turned its head slowly toward the sound of Tom's tapping. Its 6 eyes, arranged in a neat triangle on each side of its face, focused on them with unsettling precision. Instead of the mindless rage described in all the reports, Jack saw something else in those eyes: curiosity. "Look at that," Jack whispered. "It's studying us right back." Tom took a step away from the window. "That's what they do. They learn your patterns before they strike. There's a reason Earth Command keeps them under constant sedation." Jack pulled up the creature's readings on his tablet. The numbers didn't match what he'd read in the official reports. Heart rate too steady for a pure predator, brain activity patterns more complex than previously documented. Either this was a completely different species, or everything they thought they knew about shadow stalkers was wrong. "I'm reducing the sedation levels," Jack announced, already entering the commands into his tablet. Tom grabbed his wrist. "That's against every protocol we have. These containment procedures were written in blood." "The procedures are wrong." Jack gently pulled his hand free. "Look at the data. This isn't some mindless killing machine. There's intelligence there, maybe even sentience. We can't learn anything about it if we keep it drugged into near unconsciousness." "I've got 300 people on this station to protect," Tom said. "I'm reporting this to Station Command." "Go ahead." Jack didn't take his eyes off the creature. "By the time they review it, we'll already have proof one way or the other." As the sedation levels decreased, the creature's movements became more deliberate. It rose to its full height, nearly 3 meters of sleek, powerful muscle wrapped in armor-like scales. Everyone had always assumed those scales were for protection. But watching how they shifted and changed color slightly, Jack wondered if they weren't meant more for communication. The creature approached the window slowly, each movement precise and careful, as if it was trying not to appear threatening. It raised one of its 4 hands and pressed it against the glass, spreading fingers that ended in retractable claws. Another feature that had always been viewed as a weapon, but could just as easily be a tool. Jack stepped forward and placed his hand against the glass, matching the creature's gesture. Tom swore and reached for his sidearm. "Easy," Jack said softly, though whether he was talking to Tom or the creature, he wasn't sure. "Easy. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to understand." The creature's eyes focused on Jack's face. Then, to both humans' shock, it nodded, a single deliberate motion that perfectly mimicked the human gesture of understanding. "Did you see that?" Jack's voice was barely a whisper. "It's been watching us, learning from us. All this time we thought they were just hunting, but they were studying." Tom's hand didn't move from his weapon, or it's learned how to manipulate us. "These things are smart, Miller. That's what makes them so dangerous." "No," Jack said, watching as the creature began to trace patterns in the condensation on its side of the glass. "That's what makes them worth understanding." The patterns it drew weren't random. They were numbers. a simple mathematical sequence that proved beyond any doubt that they weren't dealing with just another predator. This was a breakthrough that would change everything humanity thought they knew about the galaxy's most feared species. If Jack thought he could just keep the creature alive long enough to prove it. 3 days had passed since Jack reduced the sedation levels, and Station Command still hadn't shut down his project. He suspected it was because the creature's behavior challenged everything they thought they knew about shadow stalkers. It hadn't made a single aggressive move. Instead, it solved every puzzle Jack gave it with remarkable speed. "Watch this," Jack said to the recording drone hovering beside him. He placed a new puzzle box in the delivery chamber, a complex mechanical device that required understanding of both physics and spatial relations to solve. Most humans needed at least an hour to figure it out. The creature, which Jack had started thinking of as remarkably gentle despite its fearsome appearance, picked up the puzzle with 2 of its hands, while the other 2 traced patterns in the air, as if working out calculations. 8 minutes, Jack muttered, checking his watch. "That's how long it took me to solve this one." The creature's scales shifted color slightly, taking on a bluish tinge that Jack had started to associate with deep concentration. Its 6 eyes moved independently, examining the puzzle from multiple angles at once. Then, with movements so precise they seemed almost elegant, it began manipulating the various sliding pieces and rotating sections. The solution clicked into place after exactly 7 minutes and 42 seconds. "Remarkable," Jack breathed. Not just solving it, but understanding that it was a test, a way to communicate. He made sure the drone captured everything as the creature carefully placed the solved puzzle back in the delivery chamber. The station's overnight technician, Bill, walked in with a fresh cup of coffee, still playing games with the galaxy's deadliest predator. "Look at this." Jack pulled up the creature's brain scans from before and after the sedation reduction. "See these patterns? They're almost identical to human problem-solving signatures. We weren't dealing with a simple predator. This species has intelligence at least equal to our own." "If they're so smart," Bill said between sips of coffee, "why did they destroy those other civilizations?" The creature had moved closer to the window, watching their conversation with obvious interest. It began to draw in the condensation again, but this time, instead of numbers, it sketched what looked like a star map. "I think," Jack said slowly, "it's trying to tell us something about its origins." He quickly copied the pattern into his tablet. This could be where they came from, or maybe where something important happened to their species. The creature nodded emphatically, its scales rippling with a new color, a deep purple that Jack hadn't seen before. "I need to get these coordinates to the astronomy department," Jack said. "And we need a better way to communicate." He placed a basic tablet computer in the delivery chamber. The device was heavily modified. No network access, no potential weapons applications, just a simple drawing and writing program. Bill nearly choked on his coffee. "You can't give it technology. It already understands technology better than we do," Jack pointed out. "Their ships can cross galaxies. This is just giving it a better way to talk to us." The creature picked up the tablet with extraordinary care, as if understanding how fragile it was compared to its own strength. Within moments, it had figured out how to use the drawing program and began creating complex diagrams. "Look at this." Jack leaned closer to the window. The creature was drawing what appeared to be DNA helixes, but with subtle differences from the human version. Next to these, it drew simple figures, showing the same species in different forms, some peaceful, others aggressive. "It's trying to tell us what happened to them," Jack realized. "Someone changed them, engineered them into weapons." He turned to Bill, excitement clear in his voice. "This isn't just first contact anymore. This is a chance to help an entire species reclaim their true nature." The creature's scales shifted to a warm golden color as it watched Jack's reaction. It added one more drawing to the tablet, a simple image of 2 different beings working together. One was clearly a shadow stalker. The other was unmistakably human. "See," Jack said softly. It doesn't want to hunt us. It wants to work with us. Behind them, the door slid open, and Tom walked in with 2 armed security officers. That's enough, Miller. Station Command wants all research suspended immediately. They're sending a containment team. The creature's scales darkened, but not with anger. In its eyes, Jack saw something that looked remarkably like sadness. Jack stood before Station Command's review board, trying to keep his voice steady despite his frustration. If you'd just look at the evidence. Evidence. Commander Rogers interrupted, her gray hair pulled back in a severe bun. You mean the drawings of a known predator species that has destroyed 3 civilizations? The same species that wiped out the entire research station on Proxima b. That's exactly my point, Jack insisted, pulling up the tablet displays. We've been wrong about them. The creature, which I've been calling Shadow, has been trying to tell us about their history. They were peaceful once, before someone changed them. Dr. White, the station's chief scientist, leaned forward. And you believe these communications are genuine, not simply mimicry designed to lower our guard? Jack projected the brain scan comparisons onto the main screen. These patterns don't lie. Shadow shows the same neural activity as humans during complex problem-solving and emotional responses. And look at this. He switched to a chemical analysis. Their biology shows signs of extensive genetic manipulation. Someone engineered them to be weapons. Even if that's true, Tom said from his position by the door, it doesn't make them any less dangerous now. Before Jack could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Red emergency lights flashed as Dr. White's tablet lit up with alerts. There's been a breach in Containment Section C, he announced, face pale. Someone tried to sedate the creature forcefully. They didn't follow proper protocols. Jack was already running toward the containment area, heart pounding. He knew who had done it. Dr. Reed, his rival researcher, had been arguing for more aggressive study methods for days. When he reached Shadow's containment cell, he found Dr. Reed backed against the wall. The sedation equipment lay broken on the floor, its contents never deployed. Shadow stood at the window, scales rippling between colors, but showing no signs of aggression. It could have killed me, Dr. Reed stammered. I dropped the sedation rod, and it picked it up. But then it just handed it back through the delivery slot. Jack approached the window slowly. Because Shadow isn't what we thought. Tell them, he said to the creature. Show them what you showed me. Shadow picked up the tablet they'd been using to communicate and began to write in clear, precise letters. We were explorers once, peace seekers. Then the old ones found us. They saw our potential for adaptation, our physical strength. They made us into weapons for their war. Most of my kind lost themselves to the changes. Some of us remembered. We hide. We wait. We hope. The security team arrived, weapons drawn, but Jack held up his hand. Wait. Look. Shadow was drawing again. Star charts, showing the locations of other changed ones. Other shadow stalkers who had maintained their intelligence. Then, more devastatingly, evidence of the genetic manipulation. Detailed biological diagrams that showed exactly how their species had been altered. Dr. White, Jack called out, you need to see this. These modifications, they're not just genetic engineering. They're a form of biological programming, like software, but written in DNA. The chief scientist pushed through the security team, eyes widening as he studied the diagrams. This is beyond anything we've seen. The complexity. And look here, Jack pointed to a new set of drawings Shadow was creating. They're showing us how some of them broke free of the programming. They'd been trying to help others of their kind, but they need our help to do it safely. Commander Rogers had arrived by now, watching the scene unfold. If this is true, if there are more like this one, then we're not just making first contact, Jack finished. We're witnessing a species trying to reclaim their freedom, their true nature. Shadow's scales shifted to that warm golden color again as it wrote one final message. Your kind is different. You seek to understand before you fear. Will you help us remember who we were?" The room fell silent as Commander Rogers read the message. Finally, she turned to Jack. "This goes beyond our station's authority. I'm contacting Earth Command directly." She paused, then added, "And Miller, keep working with it. Them. We need to know everything." As the others filed out, Jack stayed behind. Shadow pressed a hand against the glass, and Jack matched it with his own. They had broken through more than just protocols today. They had broken through centuries of fear and misunderstanding. And somewhere out in the galaxy, others like Shadow were waiting, hoping someone would understand them too. The station's main conference room had never been so crowded. Scientists, security personnel, and Earth Command representatives filled every seat, their attention fixed on the large display screen showing Shadow's containment cell. The creature sat calmly, tablet in hand, ready to tell its story to the assembled officials. Jack stood at the front of the room, trying to hide his nervousness. "What you're about to learn will change everything we thought we knew about the Shadow Stalkers, or as they call themselves, the Nightweavers." Shadow began to write, the words appearing on everyone's screens. "Our homeworld circled a dying star. We developed our adaptive abilities to survive its changing radiation. We learned to shift our scale's color and density, to see across multiple light spectrums, to change our biology as needed. We were peaceful. We were explorers. We wanted to learn." The Earth Command representative, Admiral Jones, leaned forward. "Then what happened?" "The Old Ones came," Shadow wrote. "They had been watching us. They saw how we could adapt, how our bodies could change. They were fighting a war they were losing. They needed weapons that could evolve faster than their enemies could develop defenses." Images appeared on the screen, biological diagrams, genetic sequences, and mathematical formulas that made even the senior scientists gasp. Shadow was revealing technology far beyond human understanding. "They changed us," Shadow continued. "Rewrote our genetic code. Added aggression triggers, combat instincts, predatory responses. Most of my kind lost themselves to these changes. Their intelligence became focused only on hunting, killing. But some of us were strong enough to keep our minds." Dr. White stood up, pointing to one of the diagrams. "These modifications, they're like nothing we've ever seen. The precision, the complexity, it's incredible. And horrible," Jack added. "They took a peaceful species and turned them into living weapons. The attacks on those civilizations, those weren't natural behavior. Those were programmed responses." Shadow's next message made the room fall silent. "The Old Ones lost their war anyway. They vanished, left us scattered across the galaxy, most of us trapped in our new violent nature. Those of us who kept our minds try to find others like us, try to help them remember. But we are few, and everyone fears us." Admiral Jones turned to Jack. "Can you verify any of this?" "Look at these star charts," Jack said, pulling up Shadow's earlier drawings. "They show the locations of Nightweaver attacks over the past century. But look at the pattern. They're not random. They're following ancient space lanes, the same routes the Old Ones would have used in their war." "And there's more," Dr. White added, standing to join Jack. "We've analyzed Shadow's genetic structure. There are clear signs of artificial modification, exactly matching the patterns they've shown us. This isn't just a story. It's documented in their very DNA." A junior scientist raised her hand. "But why tell us now? Why not before?" Shadow's response was immediate. "Because you were the first to try understanding instead of just containing. The first to look past fear to see truth. Humans are young among spacefaring species, but you question, you adapt, you try to understand. Like we once did. If what you're saying is true," Admiral Jones said slowly, "then the biggest threat to galactic peace isn't what we thought it was. And we've been making a terrible mistake." Shadow's scales shifted to that now familiar golden hue as it wrote, "Not mistake. You didn't know. But now you can help. My kind can be saved. The changes can be undone. We can remember who we were. The room erupted in discussion, but Jack kept his eyes on Shadow. The creature met his gaze with all 6 eyes, and for the first time, Jack saw something there he never expected to see in the galaxy's most feared predator, hope. Suddenly, the station's emergency sirens began to wail. Tom burst into the room, his face pale. "We have a problem. The containment systems are failing. All of them." As if to emphasize his words, the lights flickered ominously. Shadow's scales darkened with concern as it wrote one final message. "The old ones, they left fail-safes. They're still watching." The truth had emerged, but it might have come at a terrible price. Red emergency lights cast eerie shadows through the station's corridors as Jack ran toward the containment sector. Behind him, he could hear Admiral Jones barking orders over the communication system, trying to coordinate a response to the cascading system's failure. "All security teams to containment areas." Tom's voice crackled over the intercom. "Multiple containment fields are failing. I repeat, we have multiple specimens breaking free." Jack reached Shadow's observation window just as the power fluctuated again. The quantum-reinforced containment field flickered dangerously. Other specimens in nearby cells, creatures gathered from across the galaxy for research, were already breaking free of their weakened containment. "Shadow." Jack pressed his hand against the glass. "The old ones, what kind of fail-safe is this? How do we stop it?" Shadow's scales rippled with dark patterns as it quickly wrote on the tablet. They built triggers into all their technology. If their secrets were discovered, everything would self-destruct. "They're trying to silence the truth." A horrific screech echoed through the corridor. Jack turned to see a razor beast, one of the station's most dangerous specimens, tearing through a maintenance door. Its blade-like limbs had already cut through 3 layers of steel. The containment field around Shadow's cell flickered one final time and died. Jack's heart stopped. This was the moment everyone had feared. A shadow stalker, free on the station. But instead of attacking, Shadow burst through the opening and pushed Jack aside just as the razor beast lunged. Shadow caught the creature's bladed limbs with all 4 hands, its scales hardening into armor. "Run." Shadow's tablet clattered to the floor, displaying one simple message. "I'm not leaving you," Jack said, grabbing a fallen security officer's stun baton. "Not now." Together, they faced the escaped specimen. Shadow's superior strength kept it contained while Jack managed to strike it with the baton, sending it crashing to the floor, temporarily paralyzed. "More coming." Shadow spoke for the first time, its voice a surprising mix of clicks and humming tones that somehow formed rough English words. "Must protect others." Through the observation windows, Jack could see other dangerous specimens breaking free. The station's regular security measures were useless without power, but Shadow was already moving, using its natural abilities, the same ones that had made its kind such feared predators, to protect rather than destroy. "Tom," Jack called over his communicator. "We have a way to contain this. Shadow's helping us. Have you lost your mind?" Tom's voice was barely audible over the chaos. "That thing will." "Wait, what's it doing?" Through the security cameras, the entire station watched as Shadow demonstrated exactly what a Nightweaver could do when fighting to protect rather than destroy. Its scales shifted to absorb energy attacks from one creature, while its strength and speed let it outmaneuver others. Most importantly, it was clearly trying to subdue, not kill. "Station core is critical." Dr. White's voice came over the emergency channel. "The fail-safe is overloading our main reactor. We have 10 minutes until total failure." Shadow turned to Jack, all 6 eyes focused intently. "Know their technology. Can stop it, but need trust." Jack looked at the creature that had gone from research subject to ally in the space of a few days. "I already trust you. What do you need?" "Access to core. Old ones' fail-safes have weakness. Can break loop." Admiral Jones, who had been coordinating evacuation efforts, cut in over the comm. "Miller, if that creature gets into our core, then we have a chance." Jack interrupted. The same chance we took when we first started talking to Shadow. The same chance that led to everything we've learned. Sometimes understanding requires trust. The station shuddered as another system failed. They were running out of time. Do it, Admiral Jones finally ordered. But Miller, this is on your head. Jack looked at Shadow, who had just finished securing another escaped specimen. It already is. Come on, we've got a station to save. Together, Human and Nightweaver ran toward the core, while behind them, the station's systems continued to fail one by one. The old ones had built their fail-safes well, but they had never counted on one of their weapons choosing to protect rather than destroy. And they had certainly never counted on it having human help. The station's core thrummed with dangerous energy as Jack and Shadow reached the main engineering section. Emergency lighting cast everything in a red glow, making Shadow's shifting scales look like flowing lava. 6 minutes to core breach, the station's AI announced calmly. Please proceed to emergency evacuation points. Dr. White met them at the core access door, his face illuminated by the glow of multiple warning screens. The old one's program is forcing our reactor into overload. It's like it's trying to replicate their original weapon signatures. Because it is, Shadow said, its voice becoming clearer with practice, showing everyone why they should fear. Making example. The creature moved to the main control panel, all 6 eyes scanning the readouts simultaneously. But they made mistake. Left trace of original code. Jack watched in amazement as Shadow's scales began to shift in complex patterns, matching the energy signatures flowing through the station's systems. You can interface with it directly. Yes. How we learned. How we adapted. How we... Shadow's voice caught as its scales flickered painfully. How we survived their changes. Admiral Jones' voice crackled over the emergency channel. Military response ships are 30 minutes out. We don't have that long. Either fix it or we abandon station. Shadow's hands flew over the controls, entering sequences faster than Jack could follow. Cannot abandon. Fail-safe will spread. Will trigger other stations, other facilities. Chain reaction. Like a virus, Dr. White realized. It's not just trying to destroy us. It's trying to spread. 4 minutes to core breach. The AI reminded them pleasantly. Jack stepped closer to Shadow, noticing how the creature's scales were starting to look strained, almost cracking. What's happening to you? Fighting program. Fighting. Original programming too. They built destruction into our code, into our bodies. Shadow's movements became jerky, fighting against itself. Hard to resist. Hard to. Without thinking, Jack placed his hand on Shadow's arm. The scales there were burning hot. You're not what they made you to be. You proved that. You saved us when you could have killed us. You protected us when you could have hunted us. 3 minutes to core breach. Shadow's scales began to stabilize, the golden color slowly returning. Yes, we choose. We change. Like you taught us. Its hands moved with renewed purpose. Found it. Original code. Can use it against them. Dr. White's screens suddenly lit up with new data. It's rewriting the fail-safe using the old one's own command protocols. 2 minutes to core breach. Need more power, Shadow growled. Need to push harder. Its scales were starting to crack again, energy arcing between them. Jack grabbed the nearest power coupling, knowing it was dangerous but not caring. Route it through here. Use everything we've got. Jack? No. Dr. White tried to stop him. That much power directly through the coupling cold. Could save everyone. Jack finished. Do it, Shadow. Shadow's free hands grabbed the coupling. Energy surged through both of them as the creature used Jack's connection to boost its own interface with the system. Human and Nightweaver stood locked together, channeling power, fighting against programming that was millions of years old. 1 minute to core breach. Almost. Shadow's voice was strained. Almost there. 30 seconds to core breach. Jack felt like his arms were on fire, but he held on. You can do this. We can do this. Core breach imminent. 10, 9, 8. Shadow let out a roar that shook the entire chamber. Energy exploded from every console, plunging the room into darkness. Core breach sequence terminated, the AI announced. Station systems restoring to normal parameters. In the darkness, Shadow's scales provided the only light, glowing softly gold. The creature sagged against the console, its armor-like plates showing deep cracks that were slowly beginning to heal. You did it, Jack managed to say, his own hands shaking from the power surge. We did it, Shadow corrected. Could not fight programming alone. Needed friend. Dr. White was already checking the station's systems. It's incredible. The fail-safe program isn't just stopped. It's completely rewritten. It can't trigger again. Can use it, Shadow said. Can find others like me. Help them remember too. It turned all 6 eyes to Jack. If humans willing to help. Before Jack could answer, Admiral Jones' voice came over the now-clear communication system. Miller, status report. Did your crazy plan actually work? Jack looked at Shadow, who had just risked everything to save a station full of beings who had kept it prisoner. Admiral, I think it's time we had a serious discussion about starting a new kind of research program. One focused on helping rather than containing. In the restored lighting, Shadow's scales rippled with patterns that Jack now recognized as hope. 3 months after the station crisis, Jack stood in a newly constructed observation deck aboard the research vessel, Hope. Behind him, Shadow worked at a specially designed console, its scales shimmering with concentration as it analyzed data from distant star systems. Another signal, Shadow announced, looking up with all 6 eyes. Like the others, hidden in old communication bands. They're calling for help. Jack moved to stand beside his friend, watching as the data scrolled across the screen. In the past months, they had found 4 other Nightweavers who, like Shadow, had maintained their original intelligence. Each discovery had taught them more about how to help others break free from their programming. The council meeting starts in 10 minutes. Tom's voice came over the intercom. The former security chief had surprised everyone by volunteering to join their mission. They're ready for your presentation. Jack straightened his uniform, ready to change some minds. Shadow's scales rippled with what Jack now knew was amusement. Already changed biggest minds. Rest will follow. They made their way to the ship's conference room, where a dozen holographic projections showed representatives from various worlds. Some faces showed fear, others curiosity, but all of them fell silent when Shadow stepped into view. Members of the Galactic Council, Jack began. 3 months ago, we discovered that one of the greatest threats to peace in our galaxy was actually its first victim. Today, we're here to share what we've learned about helping the Nightweavers reclaim their true nature. The main screen displayed their results. 4 successful rehabilitations, dozens of potential contacts identified, and most importantly, a growing understanding of how to undo the old one's genetic programming. The process is working, Shadow added, its voice now clear and confident. Each one we help remembers more of what we once were. Each one helps us understand how to reach others. And what guarantee do we have, asked one counselor, that this isn't some elaborate trap? The old ones were cunning. This could be part of their plan. The old ones didn't plan for one thing, Jack replied. They didn't expect their weapons to make friends. Every Nightweaver we've helped has chosen to stay and help others, even though they're free to leave. That's not programming, that's choice. Shadow stepped forward, its scales shifting to display complex patterns that told its own story. We were changed to destroy, made to hunt, forced to kill, but humans showed us another way. They looked past fear to find truth. Now we look past programming to find ourselves. The council chambers erupted in discussion, but Jack noticed something important. They were talking about when to expand the program, not if. Later, in the ship's observation lounge, Jack and Shadow watched the stars streak by as they headed toward their next rescue mission. "Did you ever think it would turn out like this?" Jack asked. "When you were first captured, did you hope for something like this?" Shadow's scales shifted thoughtfully. Hoped for understanding. Found friendship instead. Better outcome. A light flashed on Shadow's console. Another signal, another lost one calling in code for help. But this time, they were ready. This time, they had a way to answer. "You know," Jack said, "the old ones thought they were creating the perfect weapon. Instead, they gave us the perfect example of how fear and hatred can be overcome." "Not perfect," Shadow corrected. "Still learning. Still changing. Still growing. Like humans." Tom's voice came over the intercom again. "We're approaching the coordinates. Signals are getting stronger." Jack and Shadow shared a look that needed no translation. They had gone from captive and keeper to partners in something unprecedented. A mission of rescue and redemption that was changing the galaxy's understanding of its most feared species. "Ready to save another one?" Jack asked. Shadow's scales glowed with that now familiar golden light of hope. "Ready to help another remember. Ready to show galaxy what friendship can do." As their ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel, Jack smiled. Somewhere out there, another Nightweaver was about to learn that the galaxy's most unexpected allies were the ones who had once been their greatest fear. And that sometimes, the best way to defy expectations was simply to offer understanding where others had only shown fear. The mission continued, one rescue at a time, proving that even the darkest weapons could be transformed by the simple power of human friendship.